2 consecutive life sentences plus 25 years. That was the punishment imposed on Erin Caffey in early 2009. She was only 17 years old. But according to psychologists, prison officials, and people who have spent decades inside the Texas correctional system, what waited for her beyond those steel doors may represent a form of punishment far more enduring than an execution chamber. For 16 years, Erin Caffey has lived inside the Hilltop Unit in Gatesville, Texas, a place engineered not simply to confine bodies, but to erode identity, routine by routine, season by season. Parole is not even a possibility until March 1st, 2038. 14 more years. By then, she will be 59. Yet the question guiding this story is not whether Erin Caffey earned this sentence. The question is something more unsettling. What does this sentence actually mean in real life? Today, we are stepping inside her daily existence. The repetitive grind of incarceration, the relentless heat, the psychological pressure that accumulates slowly over decades inside a Texas women's prison, and the argument made by experts who believe this kind of punishment demands a toll that death itself does not. Stay with us until the very end, because understanding what her life looks like now may fundamentally change how you think about justice, punishment, forgiveness, and endurance. And when this examination is complete, we want to hear from you. Is this justice, or is it something else entirely for you? Erin Caffey was born on July 27, 1991, in Texas. She grew up in Alba, a quiet rural town where families attended the same churches for generations, and neighbors recognized one another by name. The Caffey household was deeply religious. Terry and Penny Caffey raised their children within the structure of faith, routine, and discipline. Church was not an occasional activity. It was the center of their lives. Erin sang in the choir. Terry served as a youth pastor. Penny played the piano. To outsiders, the family represented stability, devotion, and moral certainty. But stability does not always mean peace. Only months after Erin entered the Texas prison system, the first signs of psychological fracture began to appear. Not in the concrete walls or steel bars, but in the people confined within them. At the Hilltop Unit in Gatesville, Texas, summer heat becomes an unrelenting force. Temperatures climb to levels that would violate basic animal welfare standards in many jurisdictions. And this heat is not temporary. It arrives every year. It lingers for months. It becomes part of daily existence. Before stepping deeper into that reality, it is necessary to understand how Erin Caffey arrived there. The date is March 1st, 2008. Alba, Texas, a town where violence was rare enough to become unforgettable when it occurred. In the early morning hours while the family slept, 2 young men forced their way into the Caffey home. Their names were Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade. They carried a .22 caliber pistol and a samurai sword. Penny Caffey was shot, then stabbed repeatedly, her injuries so severe that investigators later described the attack as nearly decapitating her. Matthew, 13 years old, pleaded for his life before being killed. Tyler, only 8, was shot in the face. Terry Caffey was shot 5 times. Somehow, against all probability, he survived. He crawled from the burning house and collapsed outside as neighbors called for help. The crime shocked the nation. But the most disturbing revelation came afterward. Investigators concluded that the attack had been orchestrated by Erin Caffey herself. 16 years old, the daughter, the choir singer, the child raised in faith. According to prosecutors, she planned the murders and recruited others to carry them out. The motive centered on her parents forbidding her relationship with her 18-year-old boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson. All 4 suspects were arrested within 24 hours. By January of 2009, Erin's legal fate was sealed. 2 consecutive life sentences plus 25 years. A minimum of 40 years before parole eligibility. No possibility of release until 2038. When Erin entered the Texas Department of Criminal Justice System, she became inmate number 0154-8417. She was 17 years old, small in stature, barely over 100 pounds. She was transferred to the Hilltop Unit, a sprawling prison complex built on more than 1,300 acres of land. Officially, it is described as a prison farm. In practice, it is where women are sent to vanish slowly, year by year. Many of the buildings at Hilltop date back to the 19th century. Former school facilities repurposed into housing units. Thick brick walls, narrow windows, minimal ventilation. Approximately 70% of Texas prisons lack air conditioning in living areas. At Hilltop, this means cell temperatures routinely exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Some inmates report readings as high as 130 degrees. In this environment, survival becomes physical. Women strip down to undergarments and lie on concrete floors. Water is poured onto the ground to cool the surface. Heat exhaustion is common. Dehydration is constant. According to academic research conducted by multiple universities, extreme heat may have contributed to more than 10% of deaths in Texas prisons over an 18-year period. But physical suffering is only one layer. Studies show that assault rates increase dramatically in facilities without climate control. When the body's overheated, tolerance evaporates, anger rises, conflict escalates, civilization thins. Daily life follows an identical pattern. Wake before dawn, count, breakfast. Work assignments in kitchens or on prison farms, count again. Lunch, more labor. Dinner, lockdown, count. The same sequence repeats every day, every week, every year. There are no private moments, no silence, no escape from observation. Women's prisons introduce additional dynamics. Inmates describe verbal degradation, restricted access to water, a constant awareness of threat. And it was within this environment that Erin Caffey encountered people who believed her. A prison volunteer named Jordan Renier described Erin as soft-spoken, withdrawn, rarely making eye contact, small, timid. Renier questioned how someone with such a demeanor could be convicted of orchestrating violent murder. Erin told her story. She described fear, regret, powerlessness. Renier believed her. She began considering advocacy. Then she researched the case. What she found contradicted everything she had been told. Court records, witness testimony, evidence suggesting planning, intent, and awareness. Renier later described experiencing nightmares and panic attacks after realizing she had been manipulated. She concluded the persona was deliberate, a survival strategy, a calculated presentation. And Erin has maintained the same account for more than 16 years. She continues to deny being the mastermind. She insists she tried to stop it. She claims she waited in the car. Even her father believes her. Terry continues to visit her. He forgave her. He prays for her. He believes she was controlled by a manipulative boyfriend. But others disagree. Friends reported Erin discussing killing her parents before the murders. A former boyfriend said she openly expressed desire for their deaths. Most disturbing, evidence indicates she was warned her brothers would have to be killed to leave no witnesses. Her alleged response was indifference. This was not accidental. This was deliberate. And now the punishment unfolds slowly. The physical conditions at the Hilltop Unit represent only one dimension of confinement. The deeper impact unfolds psychologically over years of repetition and isolation. Former inmates describe summers as suffocating, not only because of heat, but because of despair. Some women fake medical emergencies. Others attempt self-harm. Anything to be moved into cooler infirmary spaces, even temporarily. During peak summer months, indoor temperatures in brick facilities regularly exceed 90 degrees. One inmate testified that an egg placed on concrete flooring cooked from ambient heat alone. Thermometers hidden behind tape recorded temperatures exceeding 135 degrees. Access to relief is minimal. Cooling areas exist in name, but not in function. State prisons are not bound by the same temperature regulations as jails or federal facilities. But heat alone does not explain why some observers describe this punishment as worse than death. Every day inside prison is identical. The same walls, the same faces, the same meals, the same sounds echoing through vents and corridors. Time becomes distorted. Seconds are regulated, yet years dissolve without markers. There are no milestones, no achievements, no progression toward a meaningful end. Only the distant possibility of parole, decades away. The loss of autonomy is complete. What to wear, when to eat, when to speak, when to move. All decisions are external. Sustained over decades, this erodes identity. Rehabilitation becomes abstract when survival consumes all energy. Erin Caffey remains fully conscious of her losses. She knows she will never sing in her church choir again. She knows her mother and brothers are dead. She knows her father's visits are rooted in forgiveness, not absolution. Every year that passes reinforces what cannot be undone. And yet memory remains intact. This is what distinguishes life imprisonment from execution. Death is an ending. It happens once. Consciousness ceases. There is no awareness of loss, no enduring suffering. But long-term incarceration imposes continuous awareness. The punishment is renewed every morning. Consider the arithmetic. Erin has already served 16 years. 14 remain before parole eligibility. That is 30 years minimum. Even if parole were granted, an additional sentence remains. Prosecutors have stated she may never be released. Time in prison moves strangely. Each moment is controlled, yet the years feel both endless and invisible. Seasons repeat. Summers return with the same heat. Winters bring cold through the same walls. Nothing changes, and yet the victims do not fade. Penny Caffey was 37, a pianist, a mother, a woman devoted to her family. Matthew was 13, Tyler was 8. Children who attended church, played instruments, and trusted the people in their home. Terry heard his son Matthew cry out in confusion and fear moments before his death. Those words remain with him. No punishment can reverse that loss. So the question remains, is this justice or is it something else? Is condemning someone to decades of physical suffering and psychological erosion serving a purpose beyond retribution? Or does it simply prolong pain in another form? Some inmates ask why they were not executed instead. Texas continues to impose death sentences while simultaneously maintaining conditions that many describe as cruel. This case forces an uncomfortable reckoning, not about innocence, not about guilt, but about what society believes punishment should be. Erin Caffey will be 59 when parole is first possible. More than half her life will have been spent behind concrete walls, more years imprisoned than free, and every year the question remains unanswered. The question is not whether suffering was earned. The question is whether this specific kind of suffering serves any purpose beyond punishment. 2 life sentences plus 25 years. Those words define Erin Caffey's future the moment they were spoken, and they will continue to shape every remaining year of her existence, possibly until her final breath. Every summer, when Texas heat rises past 100 degrees and concrete turns unbearable to touch, she will be there. Every winter, when cold air settles into the same walls and sleep becomes shallow, she will be there. Every morning, when the count begins and the routine resets, she will be there. Nothing changes. Nothing ends. This punishment is not physical alone. It is psychological, continuous, and inescapable. Unlike execution, there is no moment of release, only the slow movement of time. This case forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about modern justice. Is this what accountability looks like? Or is it something else entirely? Is it justice? Or is it prolonged erasure without mercy? Some incarcerated people describe these conditions with a haunting question. Why were we not simply killed? That question does not disappear. It lingers long after debates about the death penalty fade. Many argue execution is too extreme. Others argue it is necessary, but rarely do we examine the alternative with the same intensity. What does it mean to condemn someone to decades of extreme heat, psychological decay, and absolute loss of autonomy? What does it mean to impose conditions that would violate animal welfare laws if inflicted elsewhere? Texas remains one of the most aggressive death penalty states in the nation. At the same time, it operates prison environments that civil rights advocates have repeatedly described as cruel and unusual. These realities exist together. They demand examination. Now the question turns to you. After understanding Erin Caffey's daily existence inside the Hilltop Unit, do you believe this punishment represents justice, or does it cross into something darker? Does the brutality of her crime justify decades of physical and psychological suffering? Or should punishment be final rather than prolonged? Share your perspective in the comments and explain your reasoning. If this analysis challenged the way you think about crime and punishment, support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. We explore cases like this every week, focusing not only on what happened, but on what happens afterward. And if you want to continue examining the psychology behind real cases, watch the next video linked on screen. Erin Caffey will be 59 years old when parole first becomes possible, if it ever does. By then, more than half her life will have been spent behind prison walls. More years confined than free, and every one of those years will carry the weight of what was done, what was lost, and what can never be repaired. Is that a fate worse than death? You decide.